Hello students, welcome to the subject of community organization and leadership. As part of this, the first lesson is concept of community organization. In this, let us try to understand the concept of organization and related elements in development. Also, comprehend the concept and principles of community organization and also know the importance of collective action in social organization. Let us see what is organization. Organizations are the social units or human groupings deliberately structured for the purpose of attaining specific goals. In social and political sciences in general, an organization may be understood as the planned, coordinated, and purposeful action of human beings working through collective action to reach a common goal or construct a tangible product. This action is usually framed by formal membership. Sociology distinguishes the term organization into planned formal and unplanned informal, that is, spontaneously formed organizations. Sociology analyzes organizations in the first line from an institutional perspective. In this sense, organization is an enduring arrangement of elements. These elements and their actions are determined by rules so that a certain task can be fulfilled through a system of coordinated division of labor. A social unit of people that is structured and managed to meet a need or to pursue collective goals. An organization is defined by the elements that are part of it, that is, who belong to the organization and who does not. Its communications, such as which elements communicate and how do they communicate, its autonomy, that is, which changes are executed autonomously by the organization or its elements, and its rules of action compared to outside events, such as what causes an organization to act as a collective actor. Next, let us see what is development. Development is the action of improving quality of life and making sure everyone has the preference in what that life looks like. These choices are widened through the combined effort of local people, international bodies, government, and a variety of civil society organizations such as NGOs, community organizations, and religious groups. By coordinated and planned cooperation of the people, the organization is able to solve tasks that lie beyond the abilities of the single individuals. The price paid by the individuals is the limitation of the degrees of freedom of the individuals. Advantages of organizations are enhancement, addition, combination of different features, and extension. Disadvantages can be inertness through coordination and loss of interaction. It can be concluded that community development is bringing forth the potential elements, abilities, and qualities of group of people who live in a common territory and who have interdependent relationship with each other. Next, let us try to understand what is community. Talcott Parsons defined community as a collectivity, the members of which share a common territorial area as their base of operation for daily activities. The word community is derived from the Old French word communauté, which is derived from Latin word communus, a broad term for fellowship or organized society. Community refers to two major groups of people. Firstly, it may be all the people in a specific geographic area, that is, a village, a town, a city, a neighborhood, or a district in a city. In the same manner, it could refer also to all the people in a province or a state, a nation, or in the world. Secondly, it is used to include groups of people who share common interests or function, such as welfare, agriculture, education, and religion. In this context, community organization may be involved in bringing these persons together to develop some awareness of and feeling for their community and to work at common problems arising out of the interest or function that they have in common. Let us see what is community mobilization. Community mobilization is a process through which action is stimulated by a community itself or by others, that is planned, carried out and evaluated by a community, individuals, groups and organizations on a participatory and sustained basis to improve the health, hygiene and educational levels so as to enhance the overall standard of living in the community. A process whereby a group of people become aware of shared concern or common need and decide to take action in order to create shared benefits. A continual and cumulative process that involves communication, education and organization, which together lead to community action and development. It is the process of bringing together or empowering members of the community from various sectors to raise awareness on and demand for a particular development program. It facilitates change and development, taking into account and felt needs of the community and leads to community organization. Community organization covers series of activities at the community level aimed at bringing about desired improvement in the social well-being of individuals, groups and neighborhoods. It can represent both community-based organizations operating as civil society non-profits and also as a function of organizing within communities defined by geographical location, shared workspace and shared experience or concerns. It is the democratic instrument to bring about sustained social change. Murray G. Ross of 1967 defines community organization as a process by which a community identifies its needs or objectives, given priority to them, develops the confidence and will to work at them, finds resources, internal and external, to deal with them, and in doing so extends and develops cooperative and collaborative attitudes and practices in the community. Thus, community organization is a method as well as a process. Its main aim is to assist the community in such a way so that it may become self-sufficient. In this definition by process, he meant a movement from identification of a problem or objective to solution of the problem or attainment of the objective in the community. Through community organization process, the capacity of the community to function as an integrated unit grows as it deals with one or more community problems. The task of the extension worker in community organization is to help initiate, nourish and develop this process. His or her task is also to make this process conscious, deliberative and understood. Kramer and Specht in 1975 defined that community organization refers to various methods of intervention whereby a professional change agent helps a community action system composed of individuals, groups or organizations to engage in planned collective action in order to deal with special problems within the democratic system of values. According to their explanation, it involves two major interrelated concerns: the interaction process of working with an action system, which includes identifying and working with the members and developing organizational and interpersonal relationships among them, which facilitates their efforts, and the technical tasks involved in identifying problem areas, analyzing causes, formulating plans, developing strategies and mobilizing the resources necessary to effect action. Now let us see the assumptions of community organization. Communities of people can develop the capacity to deal with their own problems. People want to change and can change. People should participate in making, adjusting or controlling the major changes taking place in their communities. Changes in community living, which are self-developed, have a meaning and permanence that imposed changes do not have. A holistic approach can deal successfully with problems with which a fragmented approach cannot cope. Democracy requires cooperative participation and action in the affairs of the community, and people must learn the skills which makes this possible. Frequently, community of people need help in organizing to deal with their needs, just as many individuals require help with their individual problems. Murray G. Ross identified 12 principles. First, discontent with existing conditions in the community must initiate and nourish development of the association. Second, discontent must be focused and channeled into organization, planning and action in respect to specific problems. Third, discontent which initiates or sustains community organization must be widely shared in the community. Fourth, the association must involve leaders, both formal and informal, identified with and accepted by major subgroups of the community. Fifth, the association must have goals and methods and procedures of high acceptability. Sixth, the program of the association should include some activities with an emotional content. Seventh, the association should seek to utilize the manifest and latent goodwill which exists in the community. Eighth, the association must develop active and effective lines of communication both within the association and between the association and the community. Ninth, the association should seek the support and strengthen groups which it brings together in cooperative work. 10th, the association should develop a pace of work relative to existing conditions in the community. 11th, the association should seek to develop effective leaders. 12th, the association must develop strength, stability and prestige in the community. Keeping in mind the actual practice situations in India, H.Y. Siddiqui in 1997 have worked out a set of 8 principles. First, the principle of specific objectives. Community organization should be started with general objectives and specific objectives. If development of community is a general objective, food security is one of the specific objectives. Second, the principle of planning. It is important that the organizer prepares a blueprint in the beginning. This is done with the community taking into consideration the needs of the community, available resources, agency objectives, etc. Planning in community organization is a continuous process as it follows the cycle of implementation and evaluation. Third, the principle of people's participation. Instead of forcing people to participate in all the issues, they should be encouraged to participate at all levels and issues in accordance with their capacities. It must be noted that the people will participate if they are convinced of the benefits of the program. Fourth, the principle of intergroup approach. The welfare of the whole community is always more important than the interest or the well-being of any one group or agency in the community. Everyone in the community cannot be involved in face-to-face contact with all others in the community. Therefore, it is important to identify and recognize the leaders, both the formal and informal, accepted by various groups and subgroups in the community. Inclusion of the respected and accepted leaders with whom the major subgroups identify provides a major step in the integrating of the community and makes possible initiation of a process of communication which, if it becomes effective, will nourish and sustain the process of community organization. No program can be isolated from the social welfare needs and resources of the community as a whole. The next principle is the principle of democratic functioning. It should seek to overcome disruptive influences which threaten the well-being of the community and the vitality of democratic institutions. In community organization, discrimination and segregation or exclusion should be avoided, and integration and mutual acceptance should be promoted. The sixth principle, the principle of flexible organization. This principle is basic to sound community organization. Social welfare agencies and programs must be responsive to the changing conditions, problems and needs of community life. Community is a dynamic phenomenon which constantly changes, and thus the needs and problems also keep changing. Therefore, it is necessary that the programs and services are flexible enough. Seventh, the principle of optimum utilization of indigenous resources. The fullest possible use should be made of existing resources before creating new resources or services. In the absence of resources or services, the extension worker has to mobilize the resources from various sources such as community, government, non-government agencies, etc. Apart from mobilizing physical resources, indigenous resources should be put to optimum use. The next principle, the principle of cultural orientation. Being aware of the cultural conditions allows the community organizer to identify how cultural differences influence interactions. Thus, negative situations in the interaction between individuals from different cultures might be avoided if these individuals were aware of the conditions under which cultural differences play an important role. Collective action is a crucial avenue through which communities can participate in development. Collective action ensures that everybody's ideas and needs in the community are catered for, and that everybody has an opportunity to make contribution and share responsibility in development process. Collective action gives their time and energy in development and reap the benefits accrued thereof. Through collective action, beneficiary communities become real resources, protagonists, and experts in their development processes. Marshall defined collective action as the action taken by a group, either directly or on its behalf through an organization, in pursuit of members' perceived shared interests. A very relevant issue to consider when analyzing the dynamics of collective action is what type of organization has developed and supported such action. In many cases, the outcomes of the collective action are highly dependent on the type of organizations involved, but also to the institutional arrangements which are in place at the local level. Collective action is any form of organized social or political act carried about by a group of people in order to address their needs. Collective action include issues like a community of farmers coming together to agree upon how to best ration water from a common source. Labor unions are another type of collective action, ensuring that business leaders pay a fair wage and provide adequate benefits to their employees. But it is necessary to distinguish whether the collective action is developed by an organization directly controlled by farmers, or if it is controlled and supported by a national or regional governmental authority. A single individual barely has influence on an organization's situation, but every individual is able to rejoice in every improvement regardless of whether he or she has contributed to it. Nobody is interested in bearing the expenses for the improvement. Instead, everyone is trying to profit from the public good in a greedy way. Public goods are things that are available for the use of everyone, regardless of those people's investment, and non-excludable. The basic problem consists of the fact that individuals acting economically rational do not have an interest in contributing to the provision of a public good. This is even the case if they themselves are able to utilize the good after it has been obtained. The concept of free riding is the use of public goods by people uninvolved in the process of making them available. Olson suggested that people may be encouraged to free ride, thus introducing one of the classical problems with collective action. When is collective action possible? Olson identifies certain possibilities. When it is made compulsory, this is the case of many trade unions with government taxes and so on. When social pressure is brought to bear, this is usually more effective in small groups that are already bound by common interest. With suitable skills, it can also have an impact in larger groups, but this is usually much harder to achieve. When it is people's own best interests and so occurs voluntarily. This mostly occurs in small groups. More generally, in a voluntary situation, while some collective action takes place, the level is usually distinctly suboptimal. When people are offered some other individual incentive, example, some trade unions spend more than 10% of their budget on parties simply to convince their members that membership is worthwhile. SHG, self-help groups, are the best successful groups for collective action through membership-based organizations. External actors such as NGOs, other civil society organizations, or even the government can in fact mobilize the poor and lower the cost of collective action in rural communities. SHGs or other types of membership-based organizations targeted to the poor can not only increase the propensity for collective action in local communities, but also empower women more broadly. But in order to be able to take further steps in improving livelihoods, increasing income, and eventually the bargaining power of marginalized communities, these groups will have to move beyond their current status as simple linkages between the public sector and the rural poor. Given time and appropriately designed incentives, these groups have the capacity to influence the process of both economic and political development in significant ways. Benefits of collective action. Collective action means coordinated actions by a group of individuals who seek to achieve common goal. This plays a critical role in the development of societies. Recent research suggests that it also contributes to poverty alleviation. Collective action by the poor can strengthen property rights, increase their bargaining power in labor markets, improve access to financial markets, and increase investments in public goods. The possibility of sharing knowledge and learning for the stakeholders because of collective initiatives. In many cases, a cooperative approach relies heavily on the local knowledge of stakeholders and on the possibilities to integrate this knowledge into the decision-making process. Thus, collective action increases the credibility and legitimacy of decision making, but also allows the collecting and sharing of information at lower costs compared to the individual approaches. The other important benefit of collective action is the possibility of tackling efficiently local issues. In many cases, governments have increasing difficulties in tackling local issues and cannot find a viable solution for local problems, while through collective action it is possible to implement strategies tailored to local problems, since it allows greater flexibility, responsiveness and local relevance. Now the barriers of collective action. Collective action is almost always difficult to achieve. Contributions to the collective or public goods are costly, but benefits shared by all, so individuals almost always face an incentive to free ride on the efforts and contributions of others. People are innately social and construct formal and informal social institutions to reward collective action and punish free riding. The literature suggests that collective action is likely to emerge under some key conditions, like individuals must have low costs of information, the opportunity to coordinate their actions, the opportunity to engage in repeated interaction, and the power to reward contributors and punish free riders. In this context, a study conducted by Bhardan in 2000 analyzes data from 48 irrigation systems in the Indian state of Tamil Nadu. He finds that systems are better maintained when guards are hired to monitor and punish deviators, and when costs are shared in proportion to the size of land holdings rather than equally divided among all users. Therefore, free riding is one of the main barriers to collective action, in which collective action often involves some individuals who tend not to contribute to group activities because they benefit from other members' activities. This problem is particularly relevant when collective action takes place with the objective of public goods provision, since the benefits of public goods, which are non-rival and non-excludable, cannot be limited to the group members of the collective action. Any questions?
Hi ma'am, I'm Pooja. I have a doubt. How far SHG concept is being effective in our country to the women?
Self-help groups has been very effective collective action in our country, especially for the women. This has improved the economic and social conditions of the women. Surveys say that it has given a voice and respect for the women at their homes. Hence, the SHGs have paved a way for the women empowerment. Any more questions? Well then, this is all about the concept of community organization. Thank you.